There you go.
I call to order the Rules Subcommittee for the Community Oversight Board. We have with us Ms. Carol Dawn Diener. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for being willing to serve. That's very important. You've received information from the council, and you received the 3 questions that we're going to be asking tonight. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So what we're going to do, we'll go through the 3 questions. You have 10 minutes. We'll ask each question. You just answer each one, and if we have any time left, everyone here will have an opportunity to ask you another question or two if they want to. So we'll just go ahead and start right off. Question number 1. Briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons you wish to serve.
So I think my interest really stemmed from my time as a public defender here in Nashville, both as a line attorney and as the elected public defender for 10 years. We represent people who are involved in the criminal legal system, who nearly all of them have had interactions with police officers. And those interactions don't always go well. Sometimes there are complaints. And in my practice at the Public Defender's Office, I've been involved in trying to pursue those on behalf of clients. And generally, I think clients do not have positive experiences when they seek to file a complaint. And so I've witnessed that. And I support, and I think the reasons I wish to serve I really support a community oversight board in Nashville for the police department, as well as for any government entity. During my time as the public defender in the last year and a half, we created a client advisory board for the Public Defender's Office, largely because I felt it was extremely important for us to be responsive to the complaints that people have about the work we do. And so I think that it's a positive thing for the city to have oversight over the police department, particularly because, when we talk about community policing, that should really be, in my opinion, about the community having a voice and having a say in how it is policed. And I think a community oversight board is important for that. I'm interested in serving because I think as a former Metro elected official, I have a lot of insight into the budget process, HR issues, how Metro procedures work, and that would be helpful to this board as it gets started. I'm primarily interested in serving for the first year and don't know that I would want to serve after that. But I think that the success of the board rests largely upon how it is set up and structured in the first year. And I feel like I can contribute to that.
Okay, thank you. Question number 2 is please describe your background and/or familiarity with civil rights and equity issues. I know you've said a little bit about that, but go ahead and just speak a little bit more.
Sure. And so I think what I will highlight is something that most people don't know about me. It's not something I talk about much because it was a small part of my professional career, but I spent 21 of the last 22 years in the Public Defender's Office. The 1 year I did not spend there, I spent at the city's legal department. And the vast majority of the work that I did when I was there was involved with representing the police department, being an advisor to the police department. The one trial that I represented the city in when I was at Metro Legal was in federal court, and it was a civil rights case involving police officers, an excessive force claim. And so I think that while the bulk of my experience has been in representing the indigent accused, I see both sides of things, and I have experience with representing the city in those issues. In terms of equity issues, that's really the mission of the Public Defender's Office in large part is finding equitable and achieving equitable treatment for people in the criminal legal system. Sometimes we do that, sometimes we don't. But I think that I've dedicated my professional career to doing that. So.
Thank you very much. And the last question, please describe your background, experience, and/or familiarity with criminal justice and policing practices.
Well, I'm quite familiar with the criminal legal system here in Nashville. It's what I've done and what I continue to do today. In terms of policing practices, I mean, there certainly is a distinction, and that's not something that as a criminal defense lawyer you really get trained in. But I do think that you learn a lot about it in order to be able to effectively represent your clients and to be able to effectively defend them. So if there's if there's an issue of an illegal stop, illegal interrogation, or things that violate individuals' rights, what we are often doing is asking to look into what are the police practices, what are their policies and procedures, and how do those operate. And so I think that knowledge is helpful. I think about things like photo lineups and how they're conducted, and whether police are following best practices related to photo lineups. What are police policies in terms of when they stop somebody, what they're doing in that regard, and all of those things relate into police conduct when individuals in the community feel like they've been mistreated. So I have quite a bit of familiarity with that, but it is not from the police officer's perspective. I think that this application process asked about going to the Citizens Police Academy, and I think that that's important. I've done a ride-along before, spent a night with an officer out in Madison a few years ago, and that was eye-opening. And so I think it's important that whoever serves on this board does pay attention to both sides and have an open mind to what all the issues are from both perspectives.
Thank you. I was just thinking, in your role as public defender, you're an advocate for those accused. Do you think you'll be able to step back from that role and take on the more quasi-judicial type role of an oversight board and look at it from both sides, not just the defendant's side?
I think so, yes. This city has so many good police officers that serve it. And there's no question about that in my mind. And the role of the board really is to look at a citizen complaint that comes in and judge it on its merits and try to hopefully get everybody to the point where they can walk out of there feeling, one, like they were heard, and two, that if there was a miscommunication or a misunderstanding or some insensitivity, that we can help to address that so that the city does better moving on.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions real quick? We got a minute left, so we have to kind of...
I think you asked my question, being able to separate yourself from the DA role and to operate on the other side. And you did a great job with answering that. So we really appreciate you for being here and doing what you do. And I'm sure we'll look forward to doing greater things with you, Tom.
All right.
All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Y'all hang in there this evening.
We went.
Long night ahead of you.
Yeah. Let's see.
Take care.
Take
Good to see you.
Rest here.
I read through them earlier today.
I don't know. It's on. You can look at her report. Attorney.
Go around the back way there.
Sure.
And sit back there. All right, here we go. Mr. Kimes?
Hello.
Is that correct? Thank you for joining us. We appreciate your willingness to serve on the board, so the first thing we want to say. You have received information from the council, and you've received 3 questions that we were going to be asking you tonight. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through the 3 questions. You have 10 minutes. We'll go through each question. You just answer. If there's any time left at the end, the fellow councilman will probably ask you some questions. So we'll go ahead and get started. The first question, briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons you wish to serve.
I'll start by saying thank you for taking the time and the consideration. I appreciate all the work you guys are putting into this. I know it's quite the load, and also it's an honor to follow the esteemed former public defender as well. I've just always had a desire to serve. My dad was in the Air Force for 20 years, and he instilled in me a real guidance to serve and to follow that. wherever I could in any situation that I could. So I decided to own a career in law. I've gotten involved in my community. I serve on several boards. After this, I'm going to be going to the Inglewood Neighborhood Association board meeting, which we meet once a month, and this will be my third year on that board. And in those meetings, we've had Sergeant Mike Fisher and Commander Imhoff of the East Precinct. They come to every meeting and deliver those reports for the past month in the area. So I really value their service as well and want to do what I can on this community board. I have a policy background and a law background. I think that's somewhat unique. Of course, a lot of lawyers do get involved in public policy, but my policy background is very direct in working for the Tennessee Institute for Alternatives to the Death Penalty for a couple years right out of undergrad, and then working in the Tennessee State Senate for the Senate Minority Leader. He's now the Shelby County Mayor, Lee Harris, where I helped shepherd approximately 16 bills. I want to say approximately because there was some assistance on, including 11 in the second year that I was in that role as a policy advisor. Those bills dealt with criminal justice reform, but of course they dealt with several other issues. So I've seen the process of proposing reform and implementing it, and it's something that I continue to do in my career as a lawyer, and I want to hopefully be able to bring to bear on this board. As an attorney, one that focuses on plaintiff's practice or personal injury, I have a lot of background in investigations, and it's just, I know it's a very key aspect of this board is to perform investigations, thorough, fair, and balanced investigations, and then to either, met out some sort of recommendation or to, also propose new policies, for the police. So that, I think the combination of my law and policy background is why I'm here today. Finally, as former Attorney General Bob Cooper really put it really well when he was here, transparency is key. I think that, the citizens of this great city deserve transparency. Although we do have a good entity in the Office of Professional Accountability right now, it's important that we give them that additional sense of oversight, and I think that's what this board is about. I'm a good communicator, I really believe that. I'm also a millennial and I'm diverse, I'm half Korean, and I think that this board needs someone that's young and also hopefully some people of color as well.
Thank you very much. The second question is, please describe your background and or familiarity with civil rights and equity issues.
So as an attorney, of course, I have to try to be familiar with the Constitution, both the Tennessee Constitution and the United States Constitution. I don't primarily practice civil rights law by any means. Most of my clients are victims of negligence, either from a corporation or from just a negligent driver, just like anyone on the streets. I do have a civil rights case. It's a jail death case out in Madison County that I'm working on, so I have some familiarity. I would say most of my civil rights and equity issue background comes not from my law practice, but from my policy background and my community work. I worked extensively on the drug-free school zone policy, or drug-free school zone law when I was in the Tennessee State Senate, and I attached a memo that I authored that was distributed to the Tennessee Senate Judiciary Committee. We have this law, and on its face, it was a good law to keep drugs away from schools, but the application of the law proved to be something that desired reform, and that reform was found through extensive study that I conducted over 2 years working with the Department of Corrections to obtain information. So it's the disparate application of it that I view as inequitable of certain laws, and that's primarily my background from a policy perspective. And then in my death penalty work, of course, the death penalty being the ultimate punishment that our state can met out, also looking at who those laws are actually being applied to. We have laws, and the folks over at Capitol Hill do their best to ensure that the public is protected. We also have to make sure those laws are being applied fairly and proportionally to our population.
Thank you. And the last question, please describe, which you have already, but please describe your background, experience, and or familiarity with criminal justice and policing practices.
Yeah, I can get a little bit more detailed. Again, a lot of this does stem from my drug-free school zone background. As someone that's 34, I only have so much experience that I've accrued in my time. When I worked on that issue, I got to meet firsthand with families of folks that had been incarcerated, but also incarcerated individuals. I went out to the Attorney Center Annex and met with 8 individuals who are all out there incarcerated under the Drug-Free School Zone Act, many of whom should have been arrested and should have been put in prison because they were dealing drugs, which is of course against the law. But the problem is that they were dealing drugs, say at 2 a.m. or over the summer, at times when there ostensibly are not children around, and that's what we just found desired reform. And those are some of the laws that we proposed. Also, I had the honor of being involved in the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation Citizens Academy, and that was just an incredible experience. I was one of about 30 individuals who got selected for that academy, and it was a month-long, intense, every week class experience where we learned about the policies and procedures of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, and even got to go to a gun range and fire off fully automatic weapons, which of course is not normal for a normal citizen like me. And before that, when I was in the legislature, I had the great honor of interacting extensively with the chief of police director at that time, David Roush, who of course is now Director Roush of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. So just to kind of sum it up, I've had a lot of interaction with law enforcement. I've also had a lot of experience in law and in policy. And as someone that is tries to be involved in the community as possible, I feel that I can bring a fair and balanced approach and be representative of kind of the changing face of Nashville, which is, we've got a lot of young people moving here with, the Amazon jobs coming. I think that folks will hopefully be able to see that the Community Oversight Board is comprised of a true representation of the community. I know it will be, of course, with the makeup, with the 4 individuals that are going to be from the economically distressed community, which is a really important aspect of it. So with there being 2 minutes left, of course, I would welcome any further questions.
Okay. Any questions?
No, I think you were very thorough, and I'm very impressed. I'm excited about the policy background. One thing I will ask, I guess I'll ask this, is do you have any ideas, in order for this board to be successful, I believe that we're going to have to bridge the police department with this board, and do you have any ideas about how you could build collaboration between the two groups?
I do, and unfortunately that was one of the questions I think was kind of posed on the questionnaire. I think it's really important that they do interact seamlessly, that there's mesh points that cannot be at odds. And I know that is a potential, there's a great fear of potential for that. My ideas would be to ensure that we hire an executive director that has extensive legal background and maybe even law enforcement background, so that that individual who is kind of the overarching facilitator of the board is able to communicate separate and apart to law enforcement agencies from the board, so that the law enforcement community does trust everything that the board is doing. That would be my one recommendation. And then also to ensure that the board is, of course, and this is your guys' job, is comprised of individuals that are reflective of the community, both from law enforcement, from victims' rights organizations, from public policy groups, from community organizations. I think if the law enforcement community does see that you guys have done what you guys will do an excellent job of selecting a board, they will trust that the board is doing their job.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you for being willing to serve.
And, you are an elected official, so continue doing the work that you do.
Thank you, and I also couched that in putting that if that was any sort of conflict, I would resign that position.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, it's the Davidson County Democratic Party Executive Committee, so it's a kind of a fault.
Yeah, we know it.
Yeah.
Both of us.
Thank you, Councilman. Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I did it too.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
Yeah, we've all been. Yeah, good committee. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, how you doing, Steve Jones? How y'all doing?
How you doing, Mr. Jones? You doing all right?
Doing pretty good tonight.
Good.
Good.
Stairs tried to kill me, but that's all right. I'm gonna make it.
Yeah, you got here.
So we've got 10 minutes with you. Obviously, it's not much time, but we'll do the best we can. You know you've received the 3 questions that
Correct.
we know that we're going to ask. So what we're going to do is I'll just start off by asking you the first question, let you speak, and then go 2, 3. And if there's any time left after you answer the questions, then we'll ask you a couple more
Okay,
questions.
well, I made a couple of notes. I don't want to read off of it. I may glance down at it.
No, that's fine. So, first question, briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons you wish to serve.
Okay, for me, it's quite simple. I want to see that both the community and the police force are judged fairly, and judged and treated fairly. And I think to do that, you have to gather the facts. And without gathering the facts, people start forming opinions, and pretty soon people take the opinions as facts. And I think that's where the Oversight Board comes in, is with the support of the executive assistant, the community liaison, the investigators, you could gather the facts and make an informed opinion. I'm a native Nashvilleian, so that's another reason I want to serve, is kind of give back to the city a little bit. Been here about 62 years. I don't want the city to turn into another Baltimore or Chicago where there's a lot of crime, but I also want to make sure that the police are doing what they're supposed to do too. That's what that old saying, absolute power is absolute corrupt. But like I said, with the help of the support that the Metro gives the board, I think it would be a pretty good fit.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Second question, please describe your background and/or familiarity with civil rights and equity issues.
Well, that was a hard one to answer. Like I said, I've been here all my life. So, you know, growing up here in the 60s, my dad and a friend of his, they coached baseball down at Centennial Park. I don't know if y'all remember Centennial Park was nothing but ball diamonds back then. And they were brought together, one of the first desegregated ball teams. I think y'all have heard of a guy named Howard Gentry. He was on there, and Walter Overton. And, but I was able to play on the teams behind them. But I think that brought a lot of people together. I should also growing up in Nashville, I got to see some things. We grew up over there close to Centennial Park, and I guess we snuck in or got in some kind of way. But I was fortunate to see over at Vanderbilt, John Glenn and Bobby Kennedy when they gave their speech in '68, and that was good about fairness and change. And like I said, growing up over by Centennial Park, when Martin Luther King got shot, there was the National Guard was over at Centennial Park. I don't know if anybody remembers that. As a kid, we'd go over there. Of course, we were fascinated by the tanks or whatever, and really didn't know what was going on at the time. We were running cigarettes back to them from Hurry Back Market and stuff like that. But just being in Nashville, I think I got a good feeling for the city.
Thank you. And then the third one, please describe your background, experience, and/or familiarity with criminal justice and policing practices.
Well, criminal justice, I think statute of limitations about run out of most of the things I did in my youth, so that's a good thing. But I think there needs to be change, especially as far as fair and equal sentencing. I've got a friend of mine that's in a state prison. He made a horrible decision and robbed a gas station with a gun. You know, just can't justify anything about that. But when I go to see him, I know there's people in there that are murderers and child molesters that get a less sentence than he's got. And I think it's wrong. That's my personal opinion. But I think Metro Police Department has changed over the years, and they've educated their officers and with their training. Obviously, it has to be a continuous training. I'd like to take part in it.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah. So what opportunities do you see if you were on the board that you could bring to them?
Well, I kind of keep going back to being a native Nashvilleian. I think the board needs the two picks that the mayor made. Obviously, Cooper and Miss Hildreth have got a world of knowledge, legal knowledge. But I think the board needs regular people on there too that know Nashville. And I think that as an opportunity maybe these guys don't see the same things as just a regular Joe. So,
I like that.
Good deal, yeah. So do you have any ideas about how the board should operate, or some ideas of some things you guys could do if you were on the board?
I'm not that educated about it. I think that you should be fair and open-minded, and making my first sentence is to listen and gather the facts before an opinion is made.
Thank you for answering those questions. I just have one simple. Do you have any close friends or relatives that are here applying for the board as well?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay. Well, Mr. Jones, we want to thank you for coming in. I know it was short and sweet, but we've got 159 people to go through, and we have to kind of try to evaluate them.
that.
You understand, so.
I do understand. I just want to tell you all, I appreciate the time letting me come up here.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you.
All right, y'all have a good evening.
You too. Take care of yourself.
All right, thank you now.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, thank you, sir. Uh-huh, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
You need a couple regular.
Because he put all those legal people on there like you and Mary.
That's what
Here
you
you
said
go.
yesterday.
Yeah, I was just saying that sometimes you be too knowledgeable about legal. You
And
just,
I'm not, yeah. Right there. It's like,
where's Atticus today?
Tax returns.
Is our next person, is it Mr. Elrod? Is that who our next person up is? Are you trying to get on the board, Jeremy?
No, I'm on enough stuff as it is.
oh yeah, you need to come.
Take a little stretch, we got 2 minutes.
Hey, well, thank
Hey,
you,
Doris.
appreciate it.
We got 2 minutes, so just,
Yes,
I'm trying to stretch a little.
yeah, I'm not gonna bring them in until I'm like, okay.
I wasn't
And I
here.
get out about
I
6.
wasn't here.
That's what he said too. I'm gonna have nobody here after 6:30.
Who, are you
Are
disappearing?
y'all staying out the whole time?
Yeah.
I'm gonna stay till 7.
There'll be nobody. It'll be me, you, and just me and you.
What time do they go till
Just
tonight?
the two of
What?
us.
7:30?
You stay till
I gotta
7:30?
leave.
Okay,
Oh,
good.
1
I
minute?
should be, I think I should be able to, unless he.
Yeah.
No, we will make sure.
All
Yeah,
right.
give me some rope.
It's a rope.
Child Protective Services that getting you because they hear you on the TV.
That's all right.
What's up? What's up? You all right, girl? Yeah, just oh, that's good. That's good.
Fabian,
Good time.
You and I think to use the restroom.
what?
I think to use the restroom.
I think he left. Did he have to leave early?
No, he's still here, but he said he didn't have to leave.
I
Well,
thought that was.
did he get it?
I thought that was Jeremy's stuff
I
right
thought
there.
he had to leave at 6:30, but
I'll be back.
It's gonna be
Sound
on
like Connor was
Saturday.
I'll be back.
Everybody can be here Saturday.
How are you?
Saturday,
What time?
1.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to do Saturday.
30
I'll try.
to 4:30.
Playing a bunch of John's old songs. It's Fiddling Days at the funeral today. It's pretty good.
Approximately how many people
The
are,
funeral's today.
approximately how many people are applying for this?
159.
Yeah, 150 something. I'd just soon come back tomorrow night instead of Saturday.
I would too.
That's
Yeah.
something. I
I
didn't
would
set it-
too.
I
Cause
didn't set it up.
Saturday's gonna be really, really busy downtown.
Mhm.
Very busy, and the weather's gonna be kinda, they said, bad. So,
It was supposed to snow Sunday morning? Yeah,
you
Maybe.
get snow Sunday,
maybe.
get out my sled and skis and get ready.
I
Get
gotta work
ready.
this weekend too.
Yeah,
Going on Saturday.
I have to work this weekend, so.
Oh, this is gonna be fun. You get to cover all those car accidents.
there's a march
There's a
going
pileup on
on.
I-24. We're
You got
asking you please to
inauguration
stay
going on.
Oh, yeah.
While
inside.
I stand out here.
So they're moving it inside. Where are they moving it
I'll come
inside
stand
to?
with you.
Will you?
Yes, and I'll do like this.
You
Music
say
City
that
Center.
now, but you're not gonna
Probably
come.
They're
Music
going to
City
Ryman Auditorium.
I'll do this.
Are they really?
That's what I saw.
Huddleston is a no-show.
They're not gonna be able to fit everybody in there.
Huh?
Okay, so we're going to the next person.
No
Those are
show,
the
yeah.
worst days.
Well, we
That's
gotta
the only,
get,
I love news,
it's
but
gonna be
on
10
days
minutes, so
like
you
that, I
guys
wish
have
I
10
could just.
minutes.
2 minutes, so
Okay.
we had a no-show.
It's a no-show for,
I
Where's the other one?
wouldn't criticize you so much when they see you on the news. I wouldn't mind doing it, but.
Take a walk.
The War Memorial Auditorium.
They're like, you should have called
Nice
your
big pack.
You never read the Facebook
Your
comments.
eyes look sleepy.
Are you saying this to me right now?
No, they say that to me when
It's a
they
big
see me on
crowd
the
for War
news.
Memorial.
And I
How many
go,
does that seat,
I wouldn't
Jeremy,
have
you
to
know?
be on the news if one of
Not
the
enough.
were to give a statement.
What, Ryman Auditorium?
To the War Memorial Auditorium.
No, they're gonna move to Ryman,
I
I
asked them,
think.
they go,
It's
no.
It's
And
War
I said,
Memorial.
You look nice on the news.
Is it at
today. I
War
like
Memorial?
that.
Yeah, but there's the press
What's that, oh,
release.
about 6,000,
Color looked
5,000?
good on the screen.
That much.
I saw
Bad.
Marshall
Why were you in
Tucker
the
band
ring?
there.
It's like,
Because you didn't
A
go
long time ago.
I said, well, when they wanna do a good news.
My
story,
wedding reception was
You
there.
don't wanna be on there, but you
Yeah.
wanna critique them when they do a bad news.
I
one.
think about 5,000 or 6,000 people on it.
So,
It might, but that's still not enough.
yeah, I would wanna just sit at the desk and read. It's good.
What time's the inauguration?
11 o'clock.
Sit,
Huh?
People think
11
the good
o'clock.
one is, you're just on the desk reading.
Yeah.
After the break, I wanna be on the scene.
You say that. You say that.
Yeah.
It can be a grind sometimes, though.
I know, it's kinda scary though sometimes. I sit there and watch, I'm like, you know,
Yeah, the scariest thing is you're just hoping that when right before your life shot, someone doesn't drive up behind you does something inappropriate in there.
Yeah, there was an unfortunate YouTube video that got popular. You know the one I'm talking about? I won't say what he said, but somebody comes up and they grab a reporter's microphone.
I've seen
Oh,
so
yeah,
many of them.
Yep, that's the
Yep.
one. So for the last 10 years, or 6, 7 years, however long, I've had people every week drive up behind me and yell at me.
Really?
Every single time. Every time.
And they think they're the first person to do it.
Oh yeah, it's hilarious. Every time. It's the first time it's ever happened. Never happened to me live on air, but
Yeah, I'll go find the most interesting people to speak. I like it when they get those people. I love it. But I criticize them when they do it in our neighborhood. I'm like, why did you get that lady with the curlers in her hair? I said, "She wanted to
because they're the only ones that'll talk.
But I do like it when.
go ahead. Mr. Huddleston, have a seat around here. Mr. Huddleston.
Right over there in the corner.
Uber got me late, it's not my fault.
Shame on Uber.
Welcome, Mr. Huddleston.
Thank you so much.
Daddy!
Sorry for the delay.
It's exciting.
Go ahead.
Hi,
Hi, I'm Rowland.
nice to meet you.
So, Mr. Huddleston, we're short on time here, so we're gonna
Go right through it.
get right to it. So you know that there were 3 questions that you received. Did you receive the 3 questions that we asked you? Okay, we're just gonna go ahead. You had 10 minutes, but now that since it's just a little bit later, we have a timeline, so we're gonna go ahead and get to the questions. If there's any time left after you answer the questions, we'll ask you a few questions, okay? So the first question is briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons you wish to serve.
I have a lot of experience, over 600 mediations with the Victim Offender Reconciliation Program, co-mediations. I have a strong belief that you really don't know anything until you hear both parties. And sometimes you have to help them remember. And right now we have 2 populations in the city that think they have targets on their backs. Black men and police officers. And so I think our job is to, through understanding, through listening to both sides, through trying to understand the situation, bring down the heat of the situation. So the public feels like they are let in on what's going on, that nobody's hiding something from them. My
Right.
background.
On the second question, yes, please describe your background and/or familiarity with civil rights and equity issues.
Yes, okay, so I mentioned being a mediator. I also was the front office coordinator for Operation Stand Down for 6 years, working with veterans, helping them find homes and jobs and like that, so.
And the third question, please describe your background, experience, and/or familiarity with criminal justice and policing.
Of course, as a mediator, I had extensive time with the DA's office, with the court system, with the juvenile court system.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Mr. Huddleston?
Mr. Huddleston, do you have any ideas or opportunities that you see how the Community Oversight Board could operate?
I've got a lot of ideas, but I don't know if I want to bring them out because that's really not the job of where I'm going for. Maybe sometime then we can brainstorm as to how to make this work a little better. But I think right now, really what we want to do is just be open, want to hear both sides, want to really understand what's going on. And but there's another thing. See, I have a lot of experience with this. When a police officer gets into a neighborhood, now he has to be afraid of snipers in windows. He has to be afraid coming onto these scenes. It's not like it was when we grew up. Police officers need special training in order to be able to have that split second of conscious thought before the subroutines that are designed to protect us and which he's trained thoroughly in take over. So that's my personal opinion, but I think that we need to study that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for taking the time with me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for coming in. We appreciate your willingness to serve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Don't forget your coat, sir.
I wouldn't forget it long, would I?
Not out there tonight, no, you're good.
Oh, I still appreciate you guys.
Thank you very much.
I was so worried coming in late.
No, you're fine.
I had a good Uber driver.
That's good.
Good. Have a good night.
If you
Thank you.
say,
Bye-bye.
Can you play game?
Good stuff. Moving on.
Ed, yeah. Mr. Bailey. Off Old Hickory Boulevard. Over by the. Over on the other side.
All those apartments over by the hospital?
Yeah, across interstate.
Oh, and there's a lake park.
see.
wherever
All
that
that.
is. That's lovely.
Tell her to bring them on in.
No, I've got
I'm
Part
gonna
of-
tell her to bring the next
I've got
one in.
everything
Yeah,
from
yeah.
Old Hickory Boulevard. I've got Nashville Shores and all that area.
Oh, okay.
Are you,
Mine is just straight Old Hickory Boulevard all the way to the lake. So that's the line. District Strange, I go all the way from I got airport property all the way to Hermitage
I
property.
got the strange one. What are you talking about?
Well, yours goes all the way out to
Mine is crazy too. It's kind of
Mine goes
crazy.
from that bridge and all the way over to Andrew Jackson Park.
You would go around and,
I go from Mobile Home.
hello, how you doing? You doing well on yourself?
Mr. Baylor, how are you, sir?
Very well. How are you all doing today?
We're doing all right.
It's good to see you all in a different arena.
Yes.
So Mr. Edward Baylor, one of my constituents, it's good to see you
Good
tonight.
to see you.
Thank you for your willingness to serve. We really do appreciate everybody taking the time to come out. You received the questions and information from the council on what the questions we were going to ask you tonight, correct? Okay. So you got 10 minutes. What we're going to do is just go through the 3 questions. You can just answer each one as we ask them, and then when we're done with the questions, might have a few questions from folks here. We gotta get it in within 10 minutes. So,
Okay.
so we'll go ahead and get started. Briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons you wish to serve.
My interest, I guess, starts back in 1998. I came to Nashville to attend Tennessee State University. I'm originally from West Tennessee, Jackson, Tennessee. And when I came, I fell in love with the city. First big city I ever lived in, other than home in Jackson. It's a wonderful place to live. Everybody's, it's that down-home southern type feel, but it's a big city. With what's going on in the city right now, it's saddening. And the reason it's saddening to me is that's not the city I fell in love with. And if I can help in any way, I have a background in law, have a background in criminal justice, which was my major at Tennessee State University. I work with the juvenile courts, work with numerous criminal courts, one being here in Davidson, Williamson County, Lebanon, Sumner as well. So when you look at the policies of the police department or a police department, as well as the laws, you can see what, if something's been done wrong, how it can be fixed. And what I would hate to happen in Nashville is everything to come down to blame or finger pointing, because that's not going to help anything. It's not. It's just going to make a bad situation worse. The citizens of the city should be able to trust who they call, especially if they're dialing 911, especially. And based on the last election, what it looks like is 70% of the citizens in the city don't have that trust. So if I can help in any way to rebuild that, I want to serve. That's why I'm here.
Thank you. Next question. Please describe your background and/or familiarity with civil rights and equity issues.
Equity, civil rights, that's just about 100% of the practice of law. You know that. Councilman, you know that as well. Fairness, period. You can look at fairness.
Golden Gate.
There you go.
Yeah.
You can look at fairness when it comes to a traffic stop, that everyone's treated exactly the same. And that ties in with the policies of the police department. Fairness in how the city ordinances are carried out when it comes to law enforcement. Fairness that everyone should be able to believe that if they do have an encounter with an officer, that they will be treated exactly the same. That's where equity comes in, and fairness. Civil rights, Miranda warnings, whether you're being held, detained, all of that comes into play. And that ties in as well with the policies of the police department. You have to have a community that can trust their police department. If you want the community to strive, it has to be there. Equity and civil rights tie in with that trust. So if you don't have fairness, if you have a community or just a section that believes that there is no equity, then you have a big problem. And once again, 70% of the vote said that problem is there.
Thank you. And then last but not least, please describe your background, experience, and/or familiarity with criminal justice and policing practices.
You know, criminal justice was my major. And then I decided I'd like to do the legal side of it. As well, practicing criminal law, all that ties in. If you do represent a criminal defendant, a diligent attorney is going to look at the policies of the police department and what ties in with that traffic stop that particular defendant may be accused of, as well as what the laws are that tie in. And you have to be able to look at those laws and look at those policies and determine, did the officer violate those policies or those laws? And if they did, you have to bring that to the forefront. That would be how I tie in with criminal justice. I've been practicing law for 11 years now. And with practice of law, with background in criminal justice and practicing criminal law as well, sometimes you do find situations where that has occurred, where an officer may have violated a policy, where a law may have been violated. Does that mean every officer for that particular police department has done the same thing? No, not at all. Not at all. Sometimes things happen, sometimes people make mistakes. And what you would want to gear towards is how do we make sure these mistakes aren't repeated? Not only by one particular person, but by a whole force.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
I have one question.
Uh-huh.
What ideas or opportunities do you see for the Community Oversight Board?
The Oversight Board, if used correctly, I believe it could make a very positive, it could be very positive for Nashville. With regard to what I would like to see is not only on individual circumstances, reviewing the policies of the police department, reviewing the actions of officers, as well as maybe some policies need to be updated. Maybe the Oversight Board can also look at policies of other major metropolitan cities and see if they need to be implemented here. Maybe that will help. As well, maybe there could be more community involvement with the officers. An idea I have is that you have officers from who I've talked to in the community. They say a lot of the officers they see in their individual sections of Nashville, they're not from their community. So is it possible to place an officer to work certain sections that are familiar with the community and also have other officers paired with them so they can kind of see how to be involved in that community? And maybe there's certain ways you have to talk to people. Maybe certain ways you have to interact with people. And maybe they can see that sort of a buddy system, I guess you could say. Atlanta does that. Certain metropolitan cities in Florida, they do that as well. And it has helped. Anything that can be done to make the citizens feel a little bit safer, to make them feel that they can trust the police department just a little bit more, I would like to present that to the board, and maybe it could help.
Thank you.
Yes.
I said not good.
Mr. Baylor.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming and sharing.
No, I thought it was good, the
My pleasure.
background, the
Yeah, I look
policy.
forward to going further with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Baylor, I want to thank you for coming in. I want to thank you for your willingness to serve.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So,
Thank you very much.
so much. I don't think I have any questions. I think you did a great job, so.
Very thorough.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Bailey.
you.
If there's anything I can do, just let me know.
All right, thank you.
Take care.
Yes, sir.
Quiet.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
How old is it?
Late face.
It's young too. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, 'cause young guy.
So, but I work with him quite a bit, so.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, that's why he asked me, and I said, yeah, I'd appoint him, because I knew it was not, he's a good guy. So.
Yeah.
I wish we could some kind of way, so many good people.
Jackson, Tennessee?
Yeah, Jack.
Now, are there two books over there?
Yeah, there are two. I think this is the second. This is one book. I think
Ah, so they're not the same
they're
thing.
not the same.
This corner here, you can share that with her, so you can pass that around.
If she wants it, she can come and get it.
That's what I'm saying. If you need to see it, he can pass it around for you to look at.
Yeah, I like looking
You
at
can
it
take the
last night.
application out and just pass it around.
I got to read through it, and you can just give me the older ones if y'all wanna read the new ones, but I think it does help a lot when you can
I read them all last night.
Background.
read them, or you just kinda read them as.
Made me a little
Y'all ready?
cheat sheet.
Okay. Ms. Karen Porter, thank you
Yes.
for coming tonight, and thank you for your willingness to serve. We really appreciate that. So, you've received some information from the council. I know you received, we sent out 3 questions. Did you
Yes,
receive those?
I
Okay.
did.
So we have 10 minutes. We're going to try to be quick. I'll shut up so you can get to this. There's 3 questions. I'm going to just ask you each question, 1,
Okay.
2, and 3. You answer each one, and if there's any time left after you answer the questions, then we'll ask you, we might ask you a few questions. Okay. Thank you so much. So number 1, briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons you wish to serve.
Well, when decisions that you make will adversely affect, as a group, people's lives, you need to make sure that the people that are serving are those type of people that are willing to make those decisions and live with them. Those in this room that know me know I sometimes take the hard line on things, and I'm not afraid of taking that position on either side. One of the reasons I wanted to serve is I think there needs to be a voice of reason and logic on this committee. And when I go through my background, I think you'll see why I bring that to the committee. Oversight means a responsibility for a job or activity to make sure it's done correctly. And that's one of the things that I want to make sure that is done, because whatever the decision that is made by the committee when an action is brought, one side or the other is going to be adversely affected. And it could very well adversely affect someone's career and livelihood or the rest of their lives. So that's one of the things that I'm not afraid to make that decision, but I just really feel like that I bring to the table that ability to make that decision without having a lot of emotional involvement in it. I look at the facts and take the facts, and whatever the facts say, then that's what it is.
Thank you. Second question, please describe your background and/or familiarity with civil rights and equity issues.
Okay. I've been involved in the actual investigation and management of all types of tort actions and claims for 42 years, starting in 1976. In my career, I've handled and managed all types of claims, including professional malpractice, contract law, workers' compensation law, premises general liability, and 1983 claims, which are the civil rights actions covered by the federal statute. I have worked both in Tennessee and Georgia with municipalities, both county and city, handling all kinds of claims, including the civil rights claims for those municipalities. I have worked with several municipalities here in Tennessee in setting up their risk management programs. So I'm very familiar with the workings of both the police departments, the sheriff's department, and all of the types of departments that have something to do with public safety. I have within what I've done, my responsibility is to take all the facts, weigh the facts, and sometimes they come out like I wanted them on a claim, and sometimes they don't. But you take that position, and if it doesn't work out my way, it doesn't work out my way. That's the way, that's what happens. And I think there's some attorneys at this table that will agree with me that, on first blush, when you see something, you're ready to take a position, but once you really investigate something, that position changes. So that's basically my background as far as being, qualified to look at these types of actions that are brought and make decisions.
Thank you. And the third question, please describe your background, experience, and/or familiarity with criminal justice and policing practices.
Okay, I alluded to a little bit of that in the second question. I was a founder and vice president of a third-party administrator here based in Tennessee. It's a regional administrator now with over 250 employees. And in that, we provided expertise in risk management and safety to a lot of municipalities, self-insured municipalities in Tennessee and in Montana and several other states. And as part of that, of course, we had to understand what goes into the law that governs the police, the fire, any of the public safety, to understand that when claims are brought, exactly what should have been done, was it done, and if it wasn't done, why wasn't it done, and make the recommendations to improve that type of operation. I've also, for years, was a presenter at the Georgia Continuing Legal Education seminars for claims management. Currently, I'm a regional manager for a monoline workers' compensation carrier, and I'm also the Eastern Region Manager for the Fraud Division and for the Litigation Management Division.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you for coming this afternoon. Do you have some ideas or maybe some ways that you could see of how the Community Oversight Board would operate?
It's my understanding, and I've read the resolution and I've read everything, that basically the board investigates actions that are brought. They make recommendations, and they're broad-based, and it could be just discipline. It could be that there is no, nothing to be done because everything was done correctly. And it could be as much as sending something to the district attorney if the charges are grievous enough to warrant that. And, I'm not saying, I've handled claims for many, many years, and I've handled municipality claims. And I understand sometimes things are done that overstep bounds. And would not be afraid to say that. And but it needs to be an organization that understands that we don't take gut reactions, but we really think out what is the best for both parties involved. Because there are two parties involved, and there's always three stories. Their story, and kind of what happened. And we have to weigh those facts and then make the determination as to what of the things that we can do, whether it just be a simple discipline or whether it be, you're suspended for, 30 days or whatever, or we're going to refer this to the district attorney to look at to see if there are reasons to bring charges and possibly send it to the grand jury. And that's my understanding of what the oversight on a first blush would do.
Yeah, no. Or I know if you had like some ideas or some other things that were kind of outside of that scope that you thought would be good to do.
Well, I think one of the things, and I think that we've seen a lot of emotion surrounding this oversight committee on everybody's part. And, it is a reality, and it's going to have to go, it's going to go forward. And I think one of the things that the Oversight Committee should do is education. That's one of the first things they should do is education of the public, education of our first responders, our police department, and develop a liaison with them. I don't think that anybody wants to think that this Oversight Committee is running around with a huge big stick and wanting to beat people with it. And so somewhere along the line, this division has to come together. And I think that would be one of the first things that the Oversight Committee should do is to let everybody know that they can work together.
Thank you, Karen. I appreciate
Thank you
it.
very, very much for coming.
We're about out of time, but I just want to thank you for your willingness to serve, and I appreciate you were well informed, and I appreciate you coming in and you gave us some good ideas. So thank you so much.
Good presentation.
Thank you. Don't take your purse.
Maybe a long time ago, I might have had some work comp claims with her. But I had so many different adjusters I dealt with.
Have a seat right here. Something like that.
Yeah, I believe that's right.
I see you remember one.
Yeah, that's true.
Hi,
how are you?
Good to see you.
All right, you too.
Ms. Sarah Grove, is that correct?
That's my name.
Yeah,
Hi.
yeah.
Thank you for being here, and we appreciate your willingness to serve.
Thank you.
So we've got 10 minutes with you. You've received the questions from the council office, I hope. So All right, so what we're gonna do is we're just gonna go through the 3 questions, and I'll ask you each one, and you just answer. Take as much time as you want within the 10 minutes. If we get through the 3 questions and we still have some time left, you may get some questions for some of the council people, okay? So, first question, briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons you wish to serve.
So first and foremost, I have a deep investment in accountability and transparency. And I've actually been passionate about this board since I was first introduced to meetings that were happening in summer of 2017. So since then, I've just kind of been an active participant in seeing this come to fruition. So really excited about that. I'm a licensed therapist in the state of Tennessee, and for me that means that I would also bring a trauma-informed lens to this work, which is important for police and the trauma they experience, and also people who are being policed. That can sometimes be a traumatizing experience. I also know that as a therapist I have positional power in my work, and that with great power comes responsibility and accountability, and a responsibility to do no harm. And I bring that ethic and that value to this work. I would like to. I also have strengths in facilitation. I have practiced being a circle facilitator, so that is where we do consensus building practices, getting all voices in the room, and being able to move forward with cohesion. One of my strengths is building community, getting us going, getting us started, and I think that within this kind of initial phase of the Community Oversight Board, I could really have strength here as far as just like getting traction going and bringing folks together. And finally, to be honest, I think a lot about policing. I think a lot about punitive justice, just on a personal level. I think about alternatives to them. And they're alive in me and in my work, my daily work with my clients, and how I think about the people in the city.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Second question, please describe your background and/or familiarity with civil rights and equity issues.
Yeah, so I have both formal and informal experience and training when it comes to civil rights and equity. My formal training comes from my education at Vanderbilt Divinity School, where we thought, I took classes on theological ethics and what do we do in the face of injustice? What is our theological response? How do we move forward in the face of oppression? And I also have formal training after my 8 years of working at Vanderbilt Law School, where I worked with the Research Network on Law and Neuroscience and looking at equity and injustice in the criminal justice system. My less formal experience or informal experience, I was elected to be on the steering committee of the Nashville Feminist Collective, on Showing Up for Racial Justice, SURGE. I was on their steering committee for a bit. I also have unpaid lobbying experience in the state legislature, where I work to help try to defeat the counseling discrimination bill that would affect LGBT folks. Sadly, that passed. And just on a personal level, I identify as someone in the LGBT community, so for me, and as a woman, so civil rights and justice also affect me personally. And I'm also someone with an invisible disability, so I have experience working with the Nashville Feminist Collective Disability Justice Caucus.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And third question, please describe your background, experience, and/or familiarity with criminal justice and policing practices.
Yeah, so again, I have kind of formal and informal experience. Formal experience, again, comes through Vanderbilt Divinity School. I took a class on Black and womanist theology, actually at Riverbend Maximum Security Prison. So I have experience kind of being in relationship with folks who are incarcerated, men in this case who were incarcerated. And I also have experience kind of on a formal level working at the law school at Vanderbilt, working with judges, both federal and state judges, lawyers, law professors, neuroscientists, adolescent psychologists, working to do research at the intersection of law and neuroscience. So how do advances in neuroscience impact how law, policy, procedures happen in the justice system, particularly the criminal justice system? So from there, that work, I learned everything that I could about the model penal code, juvenile justice system, and how juveniles are sentenced. And they began to do some work around racial bias just as I was leaving there after my 8 years. And then informally, I've served as a police liaison for Workers' Dignity. So whenever Workers' Dignity does actions raising awareness about wage theft, I've served as a liaison to call Metro Nashville, MMPD, and say, hey, we're going to be protesting at this corner at this time. Just want to let you know. And then they have my cell phone number, and they can call me if they need anything. So I'm a liaison in that way. I've also served on community safety teams at different times through, just marches or protests or things like that, First Amendment stuff. And informally, I have some training around what the bail process is like. I'm interested in bail and what that does and how that works, and that's through Nashville Jail Support Collective, and also through Southerners on New Ground. I'm learning about that. And I guess also informally, like I did read Gideon's Army's Driving While Black report, so that's also something that's in my repertoire. But yeah, that's me.
Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions?
So I do. I want to thank you for your service that you've already given to the community. It seems like you're very passionate, so that's appreciated and sincere. And you know how to connect the things that you've done, so we appreciate that.
Yeah.
So do you have any ideas outside of the responsibilities and the scope of what the COB is, but some new ideas or some things you think about how it could operate beyond just being an investigative for citizens?
Well, I kind of put my therapist hat on for a minute and think about the ways that that policing is hard, right? That it takes its toll, and that people put their lives on the line. And I would love to see a way to create space to say, like, listen, like, I don't want to live in a world where anyone feels like they're in harm, creating harm. So to create some dialogues around how do we care for each other, how do we be in right relationship, how do we be in community in ways that move beyond, perhaps, traditional ways of thinking about policing. I would love to see that happen. I think about, like I said, I think about that stuff a lot. I do a lot of reading around alternatives to punitive justice, punishment. We know that doesn't work, right, with kids. We punish our kids, it doesn't work. So why are we, punishing people in other ways? So I'm interested in opening up some dialogues around restorative justice, transformative justice, just other ways of thinking about how we can be in community.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you for thinking about this so seriously, and we appreciate the time and coming in and wanting to serve, and we really do appreciate it. So.
We have about 2 minutes left. Is there anything else you want to share?
Oh, wow.
I just want to say I appreciate you. I have someone in my district in that same realm, and she talks about consensus building, and I think that is an important aspect to bring to this board because you're dealing with different people. So that is definitely a I won't say unique, but I will say a strength that you have.
It's so important. I've loved the process of doing Circle and being able to find common ground and be able to say, okay, how can we make a decision that feels right for everyone, and ultimately just keep moving forward. So I did that in Germantown co-housing when I lived in the co-housing community just up the street, where we just had a process team where we said we're making all decisions. People living in 25 different units. We're as a community, we're going to make decisions together. And then, in my workplace, we make decisions. The last decision I think in my paperwork was around when do we get paid? Bi-weekly? On what scale? What does that look like? And we decided together. So
What'd you come up with?
So we decided it's gonna be every other week, and we're turning in our paperwork. Or we're doing a Monday to Thursday work week situation. Whatever works,
You should have the federal government not paying them at all. That's good.
We gotta get creative.
Ms. Grove, thank you. I just got the wrap it up. Yeah. So thank you so
Great
much.
moment. Really appreciate it. Good luck with this process.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Here, of course, my pleasure.
Got an hour left.
Consensus building.
So, did we do something out of order?
No, we're on Sarah Grove. Next is Lynn Ewing.
Okay, got you. All right, so, yeah, it's great. I have some, it's really great.
You gotta go.
Who's gonna ask my question? How are you doing? Is my seat? Yeah.
Yes,
How are you?
I am doing
Ms.
well.
Ewing, hi, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you for your willingness to serve. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
So, we've got 10 minutes with you, and we got 3 questions. Did you receive the 3 questions?
did.
Okay, good. So, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through the 3 questions. We have 10 minutes, and so I'll ask you one question, you answer, and we'll go through the questions. If there's any time after we get through with the questions, then someone may ask you another question, okay?
All righty.
Alrighty,
I
so-
could read if I could read my notes and say
Oh,
them.
sure, yeah. So, number 1, briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons you wish to serve.
Okay, I feel that there's a fracture or a breakdown between the police department and the communities they serve. I believe that being pro-accountability does not mean being anti-police. I believe that I can help conversations and bridge building in this process. I am very active in the community and trying to get a wide scope of what's happening. So I attend a lot of neighborhood association meetings, not just in my area, but throughout the city. I am on 2 foster care review boards. I am a CASA representative, and I am a Rule 31 trained mediator for conflict resolution. I think those qualities are very helpful if we're going to be talking about sensitive subjects and inflammatory topics to help keep people calm and moving in that direction of a understanding. I think that being involved in the community is a civic duty, and I just think that I could actually be helpful in that process.
Thank you very much. Next question, please describe your background and/or familiarity with civil rights and equity issues.
My background and familiarity with civil rights is very limited in the sense of doing work other than what I do on my own. I attend the police and neighborhood association meetings where they kind of go through what happened in each precinct for the week to try to figure out how they're doing and how they're feeling. I have not, well, my mom told me I was in the Civil Rights March with Martin Luther King at 5 years old, but I don't remember that. So I have a moral compass. I think right is right, and I think everyone should be treated equally under the law. But I don't have, if you want to say, background. I'm just familiar with it through print and news media, and just trying to talk and have conversations and move that particular issue forward.
Thank you. And the 3rd question, please describe your background, experience, and/or familiarity with criminal justice and policing practices.
That's a double-edged sword because I don't have a lot of experience or interactions with the police other than what I've initiated or moving violations. I've had one incident that stands out in my lifetime here in Nashville that made me feel somewhat unease from the police officer. But I've had several that were very nice and very cooperative and very helpful and didn't give me a citation or didn't lecture me. So I know it's just like teachers, you might have one teacher that's not best, but all teachers not bad. I think the police have a very difficult job to do, and I know a lot of it requires split-second decisions. I just would like to try to help make it more transparent and help the community have a communication progress.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
I'm trying not to ask anything because I know her well. I've eaten her
Do you
food
go ahead and
at
ask
her
her,
house.
a question? You're the one who needs to ask the question.
I went to school with her kids. What is it, Ms. Ewing, outside of the whole scope of what you know and what you've read and all of that stuff that you think yourself that you can bring to the table to add to this board?
Okay. As I have mentioned, I think I am a fair and just person, and I treat people the way that I would like to be treated. I think that the law is not necessarily clear-cut. I think every case has their own unique variables and circumstances. I think being a mediator helps a lot. I think it helped me to help maintain cool heads and keep the conversation on track and not
derailing, if you will. I think that the more information that is given to the board, that they are allowed to share, notice, allowed to share, I think that would help to temper a lot of situations. So that's what I think I could bring to the board.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Any questions?
No, this is, she covered it.
Wow. Wow, did I do?
Is there anything else you want to add that maybe we don't know, that, we're having to sort through a lot of people and come up with a board that's representative of the city. So is there anything that you want to add that would distinguish you from the others?
Well, I don't know if it would distinguish me from the others. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. I lived through the riots after Martin Luther King's assassination. I was in high school. I was lucky enough and blessed enough that my father saw a way out and he took us overseas. So I lived overseas in Germany for 5 years. That's where I actually graduated from high school. Having that scope, it was like a veil being lifted, because most people have a radius. They have their neighborhood or a 12-block radius, and when they go somewhere, they visit relatives. I was lucky enough to go overseas and just explore and grow, and I think that has helped me become a more rounded, open-minded person, to not be so reactionary. There's always two sides to every story, and just try to get more information before you make judgments.
And that's very important.
I think so.
Thank you. You said you're a CASA volunteer?
I am.
What's your biggest challenge being a CASA volunteer? I was just curious.
Not crying. Really, not crying, because children gets lost in the system very easily. I have stuck with some children, from beginning to end, so I don't leave my child until the court closes that case. And so you develop a relationship, and when it's time to say goodbye, that's kind of hard, and you just want to hope and pray that they'll be okay.
Tough job.
It is tough.
Tough job.
It is a tough job, but somebody's got to do it.
That's right.
Somebody's got to do it, step up, and that's what I think my civic duty is. Try to give back where I can, doing what I can.
Ms. Ewing, I want to thank you for coming in and for putting yourself out and giving us, serving, willingness to serve. So.
Thank you. That was painless.
It was painless.
I felt like I was sitting in the principal's office. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Steve over here.
All Smith.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Judy. Have a good evening.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, let me see.
Appreciate it. Howdy.
Where's you live at?
Where is me?
37207.
Yeah, it's not over here.
Were you up on the board?
Oh, we were just looking at the next person.
She
couldn't remember.
Yeah. Pull them up, yeah.
I would have them, except I'm not, for some reason, this lovely Nashville computer is not logging in. I can't get any
Hey, Brandon.
access.
Mind you happen for a second?
What's that?
Mic check. Yeah. I'll talk in yours and come in.
Yeah.
You want 1 second?
Okay, we have 3 cameras here.
Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Check 1 2.
Here, we can trade if you want to check yours.
Check 1 2. You good, Jason?
I'll talk to yours. I'll talk to yours.
Co-opetition, is that what this is?
Hey, better than not making it work. How's it going? 1 2 3. 1 2 3. I'm sitting here. Hey, I'm sitting here. Hopefully I sound good. Cool. That's good. We have a little time. Very cool. Okay. Our next person is coming in. What's that?
Where?
In this chair here, this is your seat. Right there.
Hello, how are you?
Do well.
All right, good to see you, sir.
Better than being viewed, I assure you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Charles Smith.
Charles R. Smith.
Charles R. Smith, all right.
Charles Randolph Smith.
Yes, sir.
Reason for that, the FBI is looking for Charles Smith.
Oh.
You can laugh, but I'm serious.
Well, Randolph.
All right.
Yes.
Mr. Smith, you've received some questions that the council office sent to you, is that correct?
Not really. If you're talking about the initial piece of paper that went out, yes, I got that.
Okay, did you receive the 3 questions that you would be asked tonight?
No, I did not.
They're right in front of you.
These are the 3 questions that they wanted us to ask.
Answered in the application.
I'm sorry.
They were part of the application.
And I believe these questions were also in the application process.
Mm-hmm.
So we have 10 minutes with you, so what we're going to do is we're going to just ask you these 3 questions and let you answer all 3 questions. And if there's any time left, we might ask some additional questions. So, first question, briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons you wish to serve.
Because I think I have some experience that will be beneficial to the board. It's going to need organization. It's going to need infrastructure. With my tenure in the military, I did a lot of that. I think I'll be an asset to the organization and help it to get organized, because I believe you're going to have to hit the board running. There are a lot of expectations. They need to be able to put together a program, a protocol that's credible, believable, and has a sense of dependability, and assure the citizenship that they understand what their mission is, what their job is, and how to go about doing it.
Okay, thank you. Could you please describe your background or familiarity with civil rights and equity issues?
Civil rights, being a black man, I've dealt with it for almost 80 plus years, personally in the military and in the civilian jobs that I've had. I did a somewhat quasi-type involvement with that when I was in the Army. I did more of that when I was with the DuPont Company because I had the freedom to do so. In the military, we were not allowed to get involved in protests and that sort of stuff. But when I got out of the Army, to the extent that I could, when I was with the DuPont Company, I did. I helped with voter registration with the NAACP in Fayetteville, North Carolina, that sort of stuff. That's basically my involvement with civil rights. And of course, with regard to equity, the job that I had was a unique one. Oftentimes, it wasn't what it should have been with regard to me and my pay. I fought. I lost some battles, but in the end, I came up on top because I did not stand there and let people that I thought were walking over me to continue to do so. The old saying goes that the wheel that squeaks the loudest gets the oil, and I believe in that philosophy. I believe if you have a point of view, whether it's agreed about those that are among you or not, you state it. And one should stand up for what he or she believes in. But at the same time, be fair. And that word itself requires definition, because being fair means different things to different people. That's why this board has a unique responsibility of understanding the depth of that word fairness. And I have one question too. Is it a board or a committee? Because according to my Robert's rules understanding, the requirements are just a little bit different. Which one is it? I've seen both terms used, board and committee.
Well, it's the Community Oversight Board, so I believe it'd be a board.
I've seen the term committee used as well. Next question.
Next question, 3. Please describe your background, experience, and/or familiarity with criminal justice and policing practices.
I'm a retired Army colonel, 24 years in the Army, 3 tours in Vietnam. I've got 6 kids.
Sorry, Mr. Smith.
I taught college for 10 years, Shaw University, taught biology, chemistry, and physics. I read, I write, I play golf, I babysit. My biggest fault is I expect people to be as confident about what they're doing as I am, and oftentimes that's not the case. I served on several court-martials when I was in the military. I've done several Article 32 investigations, and you probably don't know what that is. I better explain. That's where you are assigned to go dig up the facts and figures about a situation where someone has been accused of a crime, allegedly committed a crime, and has not been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that this person committed the crime. That's the limit of my criminal justice involvement. And I watch some of the shows on TV. I should have said that, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Does anybody have any questions? Because I want to hear more of Mr. Smith, because I know he's going to have something good to say.
Mr. Smith, after, seeing you around in the community.
I can't hear you, so you have to.
Out of seeing you around in the community and seeing some of the things that you do, what do you feel outside of the scope that you know of that you can bring to this board?
Well, you know what? I'm a fan of Robert's Rules of Order, and I think this board will need to have some type of parliamentary authority, number one. Number two, it's important that whatever the board does is, to say a cliche, according to Hall, because what you record and what you do properly can sink or save you. So it's important that whatever they do is by somebody's parliamentary authority. In the event there's a question from someone, well, did you have a quorum there? Did everybody vote on it? Who, you write down that. And most of the organizations that I've been associated with since I've been in Nashville, they know about as much about Robert's rules as you can stuff inside a needle's eye. And I'm serious, that's my experience. And that's important. In order to get anything done, you need to have some type of parliamentary authority to make sure you're in the ballpark at all times.
Thank you.
Pardon my talking loudly, but I don't hear well.
No, you're fine. I think your volume is excellent.
Yes.
You're good.
Well, I'll ask the same question I've asked of quite a few other people, is that we have a very challenging task sorting through all of the applicants and trying to pick a group that's representative of our city to start this board. And I was just asking each person, what unique qualification do you bring to help get this board set up and started?
We're all different. We all had different experience. We all have different exposure. I like to think that during my 80+ years in this world, I picked up some wisdom and some knowledge. You're going to have all kind of personalities on the board. Arrogant personalities, know-it-all personalities. Let's go do it in our personalities. So you need someone that to kind of take the benefit from all those situations and put it together and come up with some worthwhile. A board, it's not an easy operation because everyone has an opinion, and rightfully so. The key is get everyone's feedback into the situation, but get them to willing to accept the decision that the majority members of the board has made. That's key. And that's not easy always. You have people who are very stubborn, who believe since they have all the answers. And you have to deal with them in a very special way. You don't want to kill their enthusiasm. You don't want to do that. But you want to make sure you curb it to such an extent that it becomes useful instead of it being a liability to the board.
Thank you. We got about a minute left. We got about a minute left. Anything else you want to tell us? It's your floor.
I think I'm pretty good at what I do. I did well in college. I did well in the military. I did well with the corporate world. But I figure sometimes people have misgivings about old people, and I'm an older person, much as I hate to admit it. We're not all wisdomic, and I just made that word up because of the gray hair. There are a lot of old fools out there, too. Oh, yeah, I call it like it is, folks, and that's where my downfall is. I'm very outspoken. If you ask me my name, I'm going to tell you my name, not something else. And if you ask me my opinion, I'm going to give you my opinion. Now, that has places where that's not so smart. And I learned that in the military. That's why I'm only a colonel instead of a general. I answer according to my conscience, and sometimes in some situations, it's not smart to do that. I've learned, however.
Thank you so much for your willingness to serve.
Thanks for
We
the
appreciate it.
opportunity.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Lots of experience.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yep.
Yes, yes, yes.
What'd you do at DuPont?
Pardon?
What'd you do at DuPont?
What I do?
When you worked at DuPont. Did you work at DuPont?
Yeah.
What'd you do there?
I was the supply chain coordinator for the site in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Okay.
And do you know what that entails?
No, not
Did
really.
you work for DuPont? That's why you asked me.
No, but DuPont, the old DuPont's in my district, out there in Old Hickory.
Well, the ones when I was, we made Beauticide, and that's the glass, that's the material that covers the glass
Yeah.
in the automobiles.
Yeah.
And we made Nafion, a chemical that used to extract chlorine from the ocean water.
Okay.
And I was the guy who planned the manufacture, the shipment, the packaging, and handled all the complaints. And I had 25 women work for me, so you know.
Oh, I know, that's hard, I know.
Oh, God. Yeah. Ted?
I had a bunch over at Becky's Foods. You talked to one, you had to go talk to all of them. Then they'd start rumors. Oh, there's having an affair.
You're not here.
We got 10 minutes there.
Sometimes in the next 10 minutes, we'll bring them.
Okay. We'll go in the restroom, get a drink of water.
Take a break.
Is he here?
I think I'm gonna take a potty break myself.
If he doesn't show up, how much time are you going to have to film the news?
About a minute and a half.
Is that the reason everybody's here?
Yep.
Or,
They're not here for us.
I mean,
Wait, we did a whole,
Yeah.
we did a whole package last night on.
yeah, about.
We used that camera right
Oh, really?
there.
Yeah. Good.
Oh,
Yeah, because this one
I edited
was
it.
gone
Yeah.
done
We
live.
put it together, yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
And this one was live last night. I don't know whether it's this one.
About this.
Right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
we're all here for the interviews. We're in this particular room for Mr. Shaw.
Okay,
It can be a little complicated.
yeah. Mr. Shaw,
We tried to pull it up a little bit without being too.
he makes news. Yeah, he lives in my district, so
Oh, yeah?
I'm his councilman.
You know, just curious, if for whatever reason he's unable to show up today, could he be moved to the Saturday slate, or?
I can't tell you that. The vice mayor will be the person to be able to discuss that. I don't know.
Or he wouldn't be like bumped to the end tonight by chance?
You would have to ask the vice mayor.
Vice mayor around?
He should be, yes, yes, he's around.
Paper experience, but lived experience. That's already considered very, very to how it is that the board does its job, and particularly how it speaks to that the community. So it's going to be important. It's too early. Get at least
All right, let's go medium shot. Empty chair.
just in case. Precisely right. The quality seems to be, the cream is going to rise. It's hard, it is.
Yeah. All right.
Other than that, how's everybody been?
Good. Okay, I guess. Color. Where to get me talk a little bit about
Yeah.
how it is.
Adam and I decided to explore downstairs and found the lunchroom. I got a couple of cheeseburgers on a little slide thing.
Got a little microwavable burrito.
Yeah, he almost scalded his mouth on it. It's great. I still got my Coke too.
Oh, okay.
Apparently I'm supposed to share it with my brother. I just want to have a brother and a stepbrother. Yeah, I got a stepbrother. I guess I could share it with him, but it's too good. I was 4 these days.
Okay.
Well, I don't mean anything negative.
Oh, yeah.
I just think
Well, neither does he, but there's a lot of things that just went through his head.
I was hanging out with a coworker the other day. They're working, Daryl.
Yeah.
Yeah, we work with each other enough in the city.
Great.
He always jokes around, he's like, he sees me in this room, he's like, either something went terribly wrong, I had to come in, or I had to stay late for some reason. Why are you here? I've run into him a few times. See each other.
I'm watching a lot more school board now than ever. I'll turn on channel 3. Board of Zoning Appeals meeting is very interesting.
How about
I was laughing at the stuff I see Alex Hyder posting. Yeah, he posts some funny stuff. I'm like, he's brave.
about the train set?
That's funny.
That's awesome.
And he's to the point where he doesn't care. Doesn't care.
And look, the boat. All the things. All the things
I like
from
the Christmas tree post.
Spencer.
Well, you're really good. He selected the top of the tree, then someone else stuck it over.
Complete.
Yes, it is complete. You did a good job. How's Fox?
And look, the boat.
That's good.
This is the boat.
This is one of their game quite a bit. What kind of boat? They're military. What's the other guy's? Collection is complete. It is complete. What's the other guy's name? He's done a good job.
See, a brand new one. Complete.
It's complete. Alan, that's right. I reminded him of you.
I just showed it to everybody.
You showed it to everybody?
Yeah.
Generally see either you, Daniel, and sometimes Alan.
Daddy, I'm going to find my next seat to sit in.
You need a what?
My next seat to sit in.
No, you're staying right here. Thank you.
It didn't matter where the background was or what experience they had.
Like it back home.
So he was here and would determine whether or not.
Hey, buddy, look.
Another meeting we go to.
Brand new Spencer.
Really? Let's make sure.
I tried not to mess it up. I got too much feel there.
I got neighborhood association.
There have been a few more, but this has been the first no show.
Showtime. Is this our first show? It's time. Going with the next. Yeah.
Can I do the headline?
Yeah, we're going on.
Here we go.
How they shoot this time. Let me get my concern and disappointment.
For this.
I didn't, and I don't, I took it out of your hand. Right? Did I? Just for a second. No, I did. I took it out of your hand because I was looking at it. That wasn't really mine. So glad we figured that out.
Jeremy, you want to hang with us till 7:30?
Should be able to. As long as you don't, as long as the court allows a few outbursts, I'll be here.
You good? He's welcome. If my daughter was there, she would be all the way over here by me. So.
Well, my 4-year-old, he was moving around like.
Yes, yes.
Well, baby Elrod has a strong mother. who lays out the rules in the house, so.
He has a great mother in
That's
many,
why
many
none of that
ways.
happens. She lets Jeremy and the boys know what the rules are gonna be. She's outnumbered in the household.
Yeah, Monterey, I didn't see him out there either.
Jeremy, where's your other one?
Hey, how are you? Good.
You can have a seat
You
right over here.
Thank you.
Hello, cousin. How you?
You doing all right?
All right.
Good to see you.
Mr. Monterey Lee, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you so much for your willingness to serve. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
The council's, obviously you filled out a lot of information. The council sent you some information. Did you receive the 3 questions that the council sent you to
Yes, I did.
respond to? Okay, so we've got 10 minutes. What we're gonna do is I'll ask you each question, you respond, and then if we have any time left after the 3 questions and you answer, we might ask you a few more questions.
That's wonderful.
Okay, thank you. So the first question, briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons you wish to serve.
Well, the reason I desire to serve on the Oversight Board is equality. I believe there should be equal rights for all people, that we should be able to come together without there being any non-discrimination. There should be at least a legal protection for all citizens of Nashville, Davidson County, so that we can build a trust system. I believe that people need to be protected and protected with honesty, but also law enforcement need to be honored and looked at as individuals who are doing such a job to protect and to serve our citizens without having the finger pointed at them, but giving them an equal right to do their job, but at the same time making sure that there is a right, there is a fairness, there is an openness and an honesty at all times, from people to police and from police to people.
Thank you. Second question, please describe your background and/or your familiarity with civil rights and equity issues.
Okay. During the time of the sit-in and the civil rights, of course, I was not born. I was the age of civil rights beginning in the 60s. In 1960, I was born in 1966, but I remember a lot of the information that was shared with me through my family, through my mother. We lived at 511 Fisk Street, which is here in North Nashville, and my mother and father always used to remind me of the time when Dr. King came to Fisk University and spoke at Fisk to over 4,000 persons who were present. And so they always instilled in us the rights of being able to deal with civil rights, making sure that that there are rights for all people. I remember the Reverend Kelly Miller Smith, Senior. Matter of fact, I went to the American Baptist Theological Seminary, and I was taught by his son, the Reverend Kelly Miller Smith Jr. And so therefore, I was able to learn a lot about his father, about the sit-in, and about all of the rights for not just blacks in Nashville, but for people in Nashville. One of the things that Kelly Miller Smith spent a lot of time focusing in on, and that says equal rights for all people, civil rights for all people, not just for blacks, but to make sure that we can work together and be as one. And so my knowledge of civil rights has a lot to do with that, has a lot also to do with Jefferson Street. For many years I served as an apprentice funeral director at the K. Gardner and Son Funeral Home, which is on Jefferson Street, and there was a lot of families who came in. Some families did not have funding to bury loved ones, some families did, but we made sure that all was treated equal. And that there was no judging, there was no condemning of anyone during that time of needing assistance. Equity, there must be fairness, there must be justice, there must be fair play, there must be honesty, and I believe in that. I believe let's treat people right. Let's honor individuals. Let's make sure that there is there's a fairness, there's an openness, there is a fair balance for all people, not just for some people, for all people. I'm a Nashvilleian, born and raised here, love the city, and I believe that there should just be fairness. I don't care who you are, I don't care where you live. Just as long as there's fairness, as long as there is justice, as long as there is a justness that where people can receive the fair justice, no matter what they're going through, no matter what they have experienced. It's just people are coming together as one. One of the things I did not have the privilege of doing, that's when I received the questionnaire in the mail, I did not really have time to really fill it out because it went to the wrong address. So if you look at that, you'll see that it's not filled out in full because it went to the wrong address, and I had 20 minutes once it got in my hand to fill it out. And I said, wow, isn't that something? I put down the right address, but they still sent it to the wrong address. Even when I called in and asked them to send it to the right address, it still went to my godparents' house. But I just want there to be a fairness. I want there to be a justice. I want there to be a fair play for all people. Let's work together. I wanted to know more about civil rights. I wanted to know more about working together in Nashville. I didn't have to be asked to attend Citizen Police Academy. I signed up and attended and completed it because I wanted to know what the police department has to experience and what people have to experience. How do we work together? How do we make sure that there is there is a right for all people, that there is equality for all people, that there is a fairness for all people. And so there's a lot of things I find myself getting actively involved in to make sure that we know our history and that we carry our history, not just the history of African Americans or blacks, but the history of Nashville. We have to know the history of Nashville and make sure that we understand that civil rights it's not just for blacks, but it's for all people, and we have to work together as one.
Thank you. And then the last question, please describe your background, experience, and/or familiarity with criminal justice and policing practices.
Okay, again, dealing with criminal justice, I am a community advocate. I am the chair of the Jefferson Street United Merchants Partnership. I am the chairman of the executive board. I'm also a pastor in Nashville. In the North Nashville community. I'm very, very active when it comes to criminal justice because, again, I believe that there should be a strong re-entry into society without being judged. It doesn't matter what the penalty may have been or what you may have done in the past. I believe that there needs to be a rehabilitation of fairness for all people, to where people are able to come together and look at one another and say, okay, this is your opportunity to prove yourself to be your best. That's what I look at. I'm very actively involved in our youth because I'm also a licensed film director in the state of Tennessee. And when I see the direction our youth are going in, I understand and know that some of them are not going to reach my age. They're not going to be able to reach 52 because statistics are already proven that many of them have already perished because of their lack of understanding of what criminal justice is all about, what just living a decent life. You know, this thing is deeper than what we look at. We have to be a people who want to make sure that we work together. I'm all about working together in Nashville. I'm all about seeing people pour resources together, pour their life together, and let's help one another be at our best. I can go back and deal with a lot of people in history, but what is that going to do today? What are we going to do about today to make the change in today's time? So by being a community advocate, by being very active in our youth, very active in young adult, I have my own outreach that I put together called Team Live, that is for youth and teens for suicide prevention, to make a change in their life so that they can improve, being a pastor of an inner city church. Knowing what people are struggling with, the ins and the outs, so that there can be a great improvement in their life so that they can be at their best.
Thank you so much. We are so thankful for your willingness to serve. We appreciate it.
Okay.
Yep.
Fantastic.
All right,
All right. I love it.
You have a good one.
You too, my friend. God bless.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Take care.
Yeah, that's my blood cousin.
Really?
Yeah. There's Dr. Lee.
Dr. Lee.
Yeah, Dr. Lee.
Okay.
We have two
Go
left.
around, you're gonna have, this is your chair here, right here.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, how are you?
Good, thank you.
All
Mr.
right.
John Zirker, is that correct?
It is correct.
All right, good to have you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
First, we want to thank you for your willingness to serve. We really appreciate it. So, you've received some information, you filled out questionnaires and received information from the council office. Is that correct? And you received the 3 questions that we were going to be asking you today. Is that correct?
I hope so.
I hope so too. So what we're going to do, we got 10 minutes with you. We're going to go through those 3 questions, let you answer each one. If there's any time left, you might get some questions from these nice folks here, okay?
That'd be fine.
Thank you very much. So number 1, briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons you wish to serve.
Well, that's fine. First of all, it's the willingness. And when I saw the criteria of what you were looking for, I said, well, they're talking about me. And I mean that from my heart. I've been serving in James Casey Homes as the president of the Resident Association for the past 15 years, and within that time, my resume has really grown. With the support of and partnership with the Housing Authority, I've been afforded the opportunity to travel around the country and learn how to serve as a leader. Mediation, arbitration, Robert's Rules of Order, conflict resolution, and even how to dress for success. And so it's for a time like this. I serve in different capacities around the city as a minister with the laity, faith, with United Methodist Church, formerly homeless. I have experience with the police department. They meet with me every month on the 3rd Thursday and bring reports. We have boots on the ground where we had a grant for $150,000 for 8 boots on the ground. We developed a great relationship. The report is the decline in the East Nashville precinct. The reports they give us is how crime is being declined. I'm looking forward to working with this board and hopefully towards solutions. I have some ideas, and I'm working with other people who we think, in the same direction as far as how to deter crime, joining hands with the badge, and things of this nature. I may be talking too much, so
no, that's okay.
Somebody just stop me.
No, you're here to talk and we're here to listen.
Yeah. So I am excited about the role that I play in the city of Nashville. It started, I guess, 17 years ago with deliverance, and that life changed. I slept up on the bridges down at Spring Street. I was, an addict, but I've been in recovery and deliverance for over 17 years. Went to school as a Methodist laity. I take my role as a servant very seriously. When I saw what you were looking for, I knew that you were speaking to my willingness to serve in this capacity. I've worked with the police department even as a homeless advocate and founder of the Nashville Homeless Power Project. We did a thing called Homelessness 101 with the cadets because people were actually going to jail for panhandling and different things, and the booking station had been moved down to Harding Place, so people were saying, well, they could just not to catch me. So we fought and brought the booking station back to Nashville in that capacity. We did quite a few things when it came to justice. We were a physical agent with the contributor when they first got here because we seen that there could be a way where there wouldn't be as many people, going to jail for panhandling because, you give a man a brick and you teach him and you feed him for a day, he'll throw that brick. But if you feed him for a lifetime, if you teach him some skills to give him some opportunities. In Casey, we're doing some great things. We're even looking at I've talked with Mr. Biggs and Mr. Harbison. We had a meeting 2 weeks ago in regards to the development. This is a model for the rest of the city. Being a member of the Council of Presidents of all the 22 sites here in Nashville, I am that spokesperson, and I have to give my gratitude to the police department for their service. Night Out Against Crime, I received a recognition for service with them. We plan, do, check, and take action together. We talked just recently about this thing called spot shooter. And Mr. Harbison, he's excited about the language that we're in dialogue with, they're willing to put up $200,000 to initiate that in our community. I'm excited about that process, and hopefully the mayor will buy into it. I'd like to be able to say within a year or so, Mr. Mayor, this is happening in East Nashville, and with James Casey, it can happen all over the city of Nashville. So it's about planning, doing, and checking and taking action for me. I'm not a watchdog. I don't plan to get there and sit to watch the city police do their job or stand over their shoulders. It's about justice. And it's only, I've learned there's only a small percentage of bad police and bad people. And but I still believe that there are solutions and that we need to be working toward those solutions. I'm excited about being here. Like I said, I'm here with the willingness. If I don't get this position, it won't stop what I do every day.
I hope not.
I'm excited. When God brought me out of where I was, and I met him on the road to Damascus, and when that bright light hit me and I came into that light, that marvelous light, life has never been the same. If you get a chance to look at John Zirker, Homeless Addict, and that's on Google or however you look it up, and it's about 2 minutes long, and it'll tell the story that I shared in serving a risen Savior. I try to serve in the capacity as a Matthew 25 Christian, for in as much as I've done for the least of these, I've done it for my Lord and Savior. I am a Christian. Some people, they don't even like for us to use, Christianity in our deliverance in community today, but we have ways of making that still work with our light shining and being that person who's advocating for community. I took an oath to serve my community to the best of my abilities, and have, like I said, been afforded to be able to travel around the country and experience even this movement with gentrification and how it's been played out. Sean Donovan with Obama giving him the reins to Secretary of Hood, and then probably being given to Housing Authority all over the country. It's been painful, but it's been a fight and a challenge. I was able to get on the legislation with the NAACP. We took it to legislation, and we got the revitalization team who was there illegal. Everybody said I was crazy, but I did have some HUD laws and regulations on my belt that I stood on, 964, 135.
Mr. Zirker, we had 3 questions, but the first, that's okay. You kind of answered most of the 3 just by talking. But we'll go to number 3. We've only got 2 minutes left, and I just want to make sure that we get to this. Can you describe your background, experience, or familiarity with the criminal justice system and policing practices?
Oh, yes, sir. My experience has been being involved with them and with community. When I said join hands with the badge, that's just what I meant. I'm at the table. The commander of the East Precinct and the sergeant over there, we have these conversations, we plan, and we execute with even the cameras that we have. That's part of just being in relationship. I have the willing spirit to serve, and a relationship where we got boots on the ground, like I said, to be able to have a conversation with them and plan how we can even look at job readiness and job training and what they're willing to do. We were just Casey Night Out Against Crime, but now we're the East Nashville neighborhood Night Out Against Crime. We meet at the East Park for the last few years, and all of East Nashville neighbors come together, and we have a big relationship. What is the best word for it? Fellowship.
Mr. Zirker,
Yeah, can I have just one more minute?
You can have just one, well, just a second, because she is the timekeeper when,
Yeah.
and when she
Okay.
comes in,
It's time to go?
it's time, but that's okay. Are you sure?
Well, I want to say
yeah.
thank you. You've been awesome, and we really appreciate you coming and look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Keep in mind that I am willing,
Yes, sir.
and I'll be doing this whether I get this position or not.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
It's my lifestyle.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right, so I need 15 seconds of your time.
Sure.
Mr. Shaw went to the wrong building. He is now here, okay? I don't want to take any time away from anybody else, but the question is, and I can come back in 10 minutes, would you be willing to stay for an extra 10 minutes to hear from Mr. Shaw? Okay. We've had some people who have come in late, and we have allowed them to proceed ahead, but they've come in late during the time frame. So this is the first one we've had where somebody's actually come in late. But it's, I think it's up to the subcommittee.
Doris. Sorry. This is your chair?
I mean,
So if you
I
want-
don't mind staying, whatever the rules are that y'all have laid out is what I'm gonna go by,
The
so.
rules say we don't allow them to, I mean, that's what we decided, if they,
Well, they had to come in for the interview, okay? They had to be interviewed by the rules subcommittee.
absolutely, but
Okay.
didn't we establish in the rules that if they missed their appointment or couldn't come in, that they
We
would not be
didn't,
considered?
we didn't say anything that they just needed to be interviewed, so we didn't say anything specific about if you missed if you were
See,
20
I
minutes
think
late.
in the rules committee that I sit on that we did, that's why I just want to make sure
Okay.
that if someone else missed it, we're affording the same opportunity, because I do recall,
Right.
as a member of the rules committee, we made a decision.
So
Maybe you weren't there, but we made a decision about if they missed the appointment, then they're automatically not included. So we just probably need to verify with the other committee members if we're making some type of special exception.
So
for
what I'm going
someone.
to do, because I do not want to take any time away from Ms. Luma, so what we're going to do is we're going to let her do her 10 minutes, and then we'll come back in, and I'll get the chair of the Rules Committee to come in, and then we'll make a determination.
Okay, I think that's best, because I don't want to be on TV saying one thing.
Yeah.
Because we said if you miss your appointment, then, so we just need to make sure that we're not.
It's Ertha Luma, is that correct?
That's right.
Hello.
Thank you. Thank you for your willingness to be here and your willingness to serve. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
The council sent you filled out questionnaires and the council has sent you back information. Did you receive the 3 questions that we were gonna ask you today? Did you get those?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so we got 10 minutes. We're gonna go through the 3 questions, just 1, 2, 3, you just answer them. If there's any time left over at the end, we may ask you a few questions, okay? Sure. So number 1, briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons you wish to serve.
All right. I'm interested in serving on the COB because I want to help set a precedent. So far, there's been mention of the boards consisting of individuals from distressed background, but there's no mention of individuals from immigrants backgrounds. Personally, I'm originally from Haiti, and I grew up here in East Nashville for the past 18 years. Until quite recently, I have since moved to Antioch. I'm very concerned for the people who live in my current neighborhood. My neighborhood is largely composed of individuals who are of West and East African background, Latinos, Haitians, and African Americans. We are highly surveyed by police officers, and I believe that I will be an asset to the board given that I am highly grounded in these communities. I am also involved in the growing Black Francophone community here in Nashville. In addition to this, I work with Latino low-wage workers who face daily discrimination. Majority of them also face wage theft from scrupulous bosses. I also work with a group of African American low-wage workers who are combating lack of transit infrastructure in their neighborhood. Considering all of this, I think, given the fact that this is the first board, I think I would be an asset, and I think it would be great if I am on this board because it will set a precedent and the board will be getting it right because I reflect a diverse community.
Thank you. The second question is please describe your background and/or familiarity with civil rights and equity issues.
As I mentioned before, I work with low-wage workers who face various types of discrimination in their work sites. Those workers have had their rights encroached upon by their managers and supervisors. I also Part of what I do is I help the low-wage workers assess the issue. I help them create solutions that will help them eradicate the issue completely. I also work with the transit bus riders, where I look into the roles of current transportation issues and how they shape their daily lives, particularly their social interactions, economic mobility, along with other sustainable factors like amenities that are allowed into their neighborhoods. Part of that is what I do is I look into procedural inequalities. To give you an example, the bus riders and I, we've been digging a little bit deeper into transit decisions, and what we have found is we have found out that the certain decisions are not carried uniformly in town. For instance, there are wealthy neighborhoods in the newly gentrified neighborhoods that have certain infrastructures like crosswalk and sidewalks, whereas low-income neighborhoods that are in the border area that do not have those types of infrastructures. And recently, there's been increase in death in pedestrians in the Nashville area, and I think those things are imperative, and we can say those can be considered civil rights issues or social issues. And so those are my experiences with the social justice.
Thank you. And the last question, please describe your background, experience, and/or familiarity with criminal justice and policing practices.
My familiarity with the criminal justice consists of my lived experience in low-income community. I've been stopped by the police numerous times. I've also been cited for traffic violations. I've also received assistance from police officers when I've been stopped, when my car stopped with me on the side of the road. I also work with low-wage workers who have been consistently surveyed by the police officers, so those are also part of my lived experience as an immigrant. And given my particular position, I believe that my relationship with these diverse communities will help me bring a certain sensitivity to the strained relationship with the police in the communities. Another thing is, over the summer, I've held a series of Know Your Rights workshop with immigrants members who are not familiar with the Miranda rights or the Bill of Rights. So we've had extensive conversation about this so that they will be able to know what are the rights that the law have allowed it to them. Other thing is I have a higher education background that gives me a larger insight about the justice system. For instance, when I studied at the Middle Tennessee State University, I took a course called Logic and Critical Thinking, which helped me to develop impartial judgment about various legal cases and everyday decisions. The main text that was used in that class was called Critical Thinking, Consider the Verdict. And so I studied legal cases pretty extensively from this book. And so as a member of the board, I will be able to make judgment about evidences, particularly if the evidence is defensible or not. I can understand the proper rule of evidence, particularly the Daubert standard. And I think board members who are ignorant or does not have those particular skills will be considered a liability. In addition, I also have a background in the sciences. I have a bachelor in biology with a focus in microbiology, so I can assess raw data and informational data. So that means that when there are evidences that are presented with DNA, I'll be able to understand the margins of error with data. I also am able to make distinction between principles and application. Again, considering my relationship with the communities along with my diverse set of skills, I think I will make a great board member.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any questions?
No, I'm very impressed with you, and I'm your councilwoman, so so that figures. You're the greatest people out in Antioch, so I'm very impressed, and I hope we stay in touch because I believe that you're an asset to the community and that you bring some wonderful insight, especially into the diverse part.
Thank you.
And no matter what happens, stay involved.
Yes.
And
Thank you.
and I definitely appreciate that, so I definitely want us to exchange information. I have yours, but I will be reaching out to you.
Perfect, thank you.
And I just wanted to say thank you for all that you do within the community, for the diverse communities that are here. And those are the people that we need to foster to as well, to know about their rights and
Right.
how to actually work with the police officers within our community. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And hopefully we'll look forward to doing more things together.
All right, awesome.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Good to meet you. Thank you for
Nice to
coming.
meet you.
Nashville's attractive. I'm excited about it. We're gonna rule this country.
They did that in
Here's,
We've got some great people. Some great people in this one. I'm ready to go home.
judges.
This is it.